I see you, Jerry.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Were you able to get a hold of Craig St. Mark?
Yeah, I did. I added him to the general mailing list, so he will be getting the announcements from there from now on.
Okay, and how about Dave Ramsey?
Uh Seems like he was already in there, but I'll just double check that just to make sure. I
Okay.
recognize the name for some reason.
Yeah, I met up with those two guys within 2 weeks, one up in Travers and one down at Hannah at a funeral. So uh, they were both interested. And so I thought, okay,
Okay, well, I'll just double check to make sure. I know I got the first one you mentioned,
Craig.
and I recognize the second name, but well, I see a diploma above your head.
Oh, I can take it down.
Oh,
I think it's a Rotary certificate of some kind,
oh,
certificate of merit for something I did. I was president for a year, besides other things.
my wife is always asking me if I'm sure that everything is tidy in my background since we use this as an office.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Frank's on, but no sound and no picture.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll,
Figured out.
yeah, there he is. Oh, he's in there twice now.
That's
This is just like the Zoom meetings that my wife is involved with some people from the church. Everybody goes through this. Can
yeah.
you hear me now?
I had to do an upgrade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hadn't been on in a while, I guess.
Ah, okay.
Hey,
And I
Jim.
see Jim Blanchard,
I
our buddy from the archives.
haven't been there in a little while. Still got some stuff to go through. I've got these, and there are a bunch more that at the archives that I need to scan, but
Oh, okay, great.
summers are busy. So,
Yeah.
did you see what Angela had sent about how she had the rosters of student names going way back?
Hi, Jack.
There's Pete. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, we can when more people are logged in, we can kind of talk about that for a second.
Everyone staying healthy?
Relatively.
Hey, that's not. I'll bet you that other Frank is Frank Unger.
Hey, Bill.
There's-
Hello.
Bill's just going to have a picture of him.
I'm saving the rest of you from the real thing. All right.
There you go. Hi there, Bill.
Hey, I got Bill. I got a Facebook like request from a Bill Gebhard the second or third. Is that one of your kids?
None that I admit to. I have no idea who that would be.
I
How could there be another Bill Gebhard?
know it's scary.
The world should not be punished with that.
I wonder, Frank Unger, can you hear us? We see that you have muted your voice.
What? No, you're fine. I don't know why you're not in video anymore. Oh, because I guess you don't see yourself, right?
I don't know. Maybe not.
And Janice is Stash, really.
Right.
Does it show up? Can you see him?
I can see these guys.
Ask if they can see you.
Can you see me?
No,
No, we can't see you.
You click start video.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
Hey, there's Stash. Hiya.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
I wonder if would this be too much?
No, we'll put this. Let's just put the light on.
I'll turn this one off.
Ah,
Yeah, that doesn't.
Dark. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's good.
and Norb is signing in.
Okay, thank you. Say hi to Margie. Hope you guys are cool over there, wherever you are.
It's comfortable. Well, of course, you know, you're in the Southeast Michigan area. So,
It's hot and muggy.
yeah, it's not too bad where I am right now. Our condo unit faces the southeast, so we don't get the hot afternoon sun, and we get a pretty good airflow through this. So I just turned on the air conditioning now because it builds up during the day down in our basement area. And there's Norb.
Hey, Norb.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. We can see you.
You see
Al.
Can I mute myself or not?
It seems like that's when things seem to go awry when you hit that button or one of the buttons. Maybe you're not hitting. Well, at any rate, I do it at your whatever works for you. And then,
Okay, I put myself on mute. Thank you.
okay, but we can
And I
hear you
know-
now.
And what?
Well, we can hear and see you now. You're not on mute.
Right, yes, I am. I have the space bar pushed down so I can talk.
Oh, I see it. Gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Albert's iPad
Hi, Al.
Hi there.
Hello.
and Richard Galant.
Hey, Dick.
Hi there.
Good
All right.
evening.
Oh, Pete
And
Garthe.
so far, we haven't gotten anything from, I believe that's Frank Unger.
No, no word.
He's got his mic off.
I don't know if that means he can't hear us or,
I don't see him listed. Let's see.
here's a good test. Norb, can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay. I thought that maybe the Frank, and I think that's Frank Unger, his mic is off, but apparently he can hear us. We just can't see him. I don't think there's anything I can do with that. And I'm not going to try and fool around with somebody else.
no, I'm pretty sure he has to do something. Turn on the video.
No, that's not gonna work.
Well, why don't we just launch ahead and we'll see who else joins us and we can bring them up to date if and when they show up.
Sure.
Let's see. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about the 1959-60 film. And I was also interested in talking about the Indian schools question that I posted some info on the last alumni update. And just a couple other odds and ends. So that's all will be on my discussion list. Anybody else have something that
Yeah, I've got one thing. All of a sudden, my September 11th gets very bad for me.
Oh, okay. Well,
That'll fix us.
I still want to do it. Is the following week any better?
18th.
Yeah, the 18th.
so far there's nothing on my agenda.
That might work better for me too. September 11th is not probably going to be a date that I could make, but maybe September 18th I could. So I'm in favor of moving it.
That's fine.
September 18th will work a lot better for me now. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Schedule's got away from me.
Yeah,
that's got to be better for us than if it'll work for you.
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. So we'll just change the dates that are been
Right.
posted out there, and
Right.
Sure.
and hopefully it's still early enough that we can make the arrangements. And I promise to make it even better because it's the 18th.
Right.
I thought it was originally scheduled for September 8th.
No,
No?
Too many people, I
11.
think.
It was
11.
always the 11th? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, 9/11, just like the infamous day, 9/11.
Right.
But I can tell you now, I won't be able to make the 18th, but that's okay.
I have a topic to talk about.
Sure.
Oh. Yeah, I do
And,
too.
I hear about more churches going back to the old Latin and stuff. I started to wonder and question and try to remember what happened when we had a Latin Mass. And let me lay out what I think I remember, but I'm not sure. The epistle, the priest would be on the right side, of course, with his back to us, and would read the epistle in Latin. Is that
Yes,
true?
that's right.
And then we, the altar boy, would go up and get the missal or whatever it was and carry it around to the left side.
Yes,
And then the priest would recite the gospel in Latin.
yes,
Is that true?
yes.
So he'd basically be reading it to himself, both the epistle and the gospel in Latin.
Yeah,
Well, it was read aloud, but no one can understand it.
but yeah,
And
we
then
didn't understand.
we'd have the sermon, and is it true he would then begin the sermon by reading the gospel in English or not?
Yes.
I think that-
Either he would, or sometimes they'd have a lector there, and
lay
the lector
person?
would read the gospel. And
A
then they'd
layperson
have,
would read.
say again?
A layperson would
Yes.
participate in the mass.
Oh, yeah.
I
They
don't
read
remember
the gospel.
I don't remember that at all.
We
I don't
used to have a
remember.
guy at St. Thomas who he was famous for malaprops, and he had Jesus as or the apostles as outlaws or something. He'd make a mispronunciation, and it became. He was so good at it, everybody'd wait because it was the best joke of the service in a way. But yeah, I remember that happening, Pete. I also remember that for me, when I was small, the most important part was when the priest gave up. I think it was at the pulpit, but he would read like all the things that the events that are happening or whatever too at that break in the service, if you will. Like, I don't know if there was a parish picnic as an example or something like that.
Was it in Latin or English?
No, it was in English. All of this was in English.
You know,
And
you
they,
can,
I mean,
announcements
like
during
Pete said, they went to the pulpit.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
That's
you
the
can-
I
announcement.
remember there was as an altar boy, we had steps, and they were marble steps
Yeah,
at the altar. And everybody held their breath because we were all, like fifth and sixth graders, and those metal stanchions for the books, let alone, were so heavy. And usually the cassocks weren't fitting that well, and
Mhm.
you'd have tragedies. I mean, they'd trip on the cassocks or every once in a while, or it was quite a task to switch the book from one side to the other, because they had to go down genuflect, and then go up again from the epistle side to the gospel side. And then the other thing that in the Latin Mass, and it was a big change in when they went to after Vatican II, is that they would read the start of the gospel was from St. John. In the beginning of was the word, and was read in Latin. So that was always read, and everybody was flying out of the church while the priest was trying to read that part. That was the last part of the Mass, and then the priest left.
Right. Are you talking about the readings being in Latin? The whole Mass was
Yes.
in Latin.
Oh, that's true, but I'm just saying that he
Yeah.
was asking about those gospels and that were being read,
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah.
the same. The last gospel was always the same
Right.
reading. It was from John, and they
Right.
usually had a special plaque that had the gospel written on it, and they just read off of it.
Oh. Mhm.
I remember that.
I don't remember us reading the gospel.
No, it was the priest.
Oh, okay. You're saying it just you could follow along.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
I remember too, a little bit different, Pete, but at the at the services during Easter, during the Holy Week, when they had the Gospels, they would read the Gospels or sing them in Latin. And Father Fay, in my opinion, had one of the finest tenor voices of any person I've ever heard, live and in color. And people would come to the service just to hear him sing the gospel in Latin. He was he was just gifted there.
Yeah, of course, he was Irish.
Yeah, but I mean, his voice was unbelievably good.
Yeah. Yeah. Irish are known for that. That's the reason I mentioned
Yeah,
it.
you're right. Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
Hi there.
Hey, Banner.
Paul?
I'm sorry I had trouble signing in. Zoom didn't like it.
Ah. So you're late to the party for the first time in Zoom history.
Yeah. Instead of first, he's almost last.
First will shall be last, Paul.
And
Yeah.
and you also seem to have knocked Frank
It
off.
works.
Frank, Frank, maybe that's why Frank could get in.
Is Frank Marfia up in Wisconsin?
No, I'm not. I'm in Chicago. We're not doing much in Wisconsin this year. We have a lot of health problems in our family, so we're seeing lots of doctors.
Oh, you look pretty good,
I just had knee
Frank.
surgery, and I'm over that. That's good news. But my wife just was diagnosed with AFib,
Oh,
and now she's seeing a pulmonologist for possible lung cancer, but it hasn't been verified officially. She's having a biopsy in 2 weeks. So we're not in Wisconsin, and we may not be there until August or even later.
Yeah, we're saying extra prayers for her.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, lots.
Amen.
Yeah, so it's a
For you too.
a lot of doctor visits, a lot of it's one of the benefits of having children who you're close to. I mean, some families aren't close to their children. Is mine have all pitched in. We've had a couple of my daughters flew in from out of town when I had knee surgery and I was incapacitated, and stayed with us or stayed with a sister and came over to our house every day and did all kinds of things for us. So I say some families don't have maybe close relationships with their children, but I'm blessed with my 4. So we'll hopefully get through this. Thank you for your prayers.
Frank, did you have knee replacement?
I did. And it's the second time I've had it. I mean, I had my left knee replaced 9 years ago, and the right knee really took a turn for the worse during the pandemic. And there were a couple of reasons why I just couldn't get it done during the pandemic. When you have knee surgery, I don't know if it's anybody else on this call has had it. You have to get permission from every one of your doctors. The surgeon to the surgery, unless everybody signs off.
Oh.
And I had trouble getting one of my pulmonologists to sign off. He said he would do it, but then he wouldn't. I don't know what his issue was, but I finally had to plead to his nurse you know, you now can you can't communicate, you can't pick up the phone and call your doctor. You have to go through a portal or some kind of internet connection. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's true of all of you, but it is for me.
yeah.
And he wouldn't respond. He wouldn't say why. He wouldn't sign off. And I finally made a plea to him and his nurse. I can't get this surgery, and I'm in a lot of pain without your permission. And so he finally agreed. But he made me, or he told me to get off I have a heavy duty suppressant drug for my lung disease. And I had to stop taking it for 15 days, 2 weeks. And that caused me a lot of concern because I wasn't sure how my body would react to it. It actually did very well. I'm much better. I'm almost through one more session of physical therapy and I'll be done. So that part of my body is.
Yeah. You're looking great. You're looking great there, Frank.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, well, I've lost a lot of weight too.
You look good.
One time I was almost 230 pounds, way overweight. I'm below 190 now. And I want to get down to 180 even, so.
Hey, there's Frank.
Nice Frank's here.
You're in.
It took quite a while, but I'm in. Okay.
I have a question about that film, Bill, you sent us.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
go ahead.
didn't recognize anybody except the few priests that were in it. Was that 59? Was that actually filmed?
It was, the first part of it was the spring and fall of 59, and then they went into 1960, and that looked like it picked up with the that class's what did they call it, skip day or something
Their
like
senior
that.
day, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I didn't recognize anybody, even from a class ahead of us, like Dick Galant or Frank Unger. I didn't see them in any of those pictures. They were all young men who I was not familiar with.
They were in
Upper class.
upper class. I mean, they were all at St. Henry's Hall, or the first or second year of college. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were on their way.
it might have, if you had, they might have been your prefect. I don't know, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize it. And then, of course, there was the blackface, whatever skit or.
Yeah, that was one of my things that on my list. Does anybody know what the story behind that is? The only old timer in there is Norb. I don't know if Norb, if you got a chance to look at the video that I'm drawing a blank. Dick Howley Chuck Howley had sent over.
Right. I would love to have done that, but then I realized I couldn't see anything anyway.
So
Well,
I
it
didn't-
ended up with something that looked, as I recall from talking with Chuck, there was something like a senior play or something at the end of the senior year for us, and it was a horrendous blackface skit where all of the seniors were, in blackface. Of course, you
Wow.
couldn't hear anything about what it is they were saying, but you just wondered. Now that would have been like maybe April or May of 1960.
Right.
But
so I was thinking about this when I was mowing the lawn just earlier. It used to be popular, like in the 50s. I don't know if you know, Lowell, Michigan, they had in the summertime, they had a showboat. And part of the entertainment they called them Inmen. I don't know if you recall an entertainer called Al Jolson.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was kind of a takeoff on them, that they would kind of sing and dance. And I took it that they were doing something like that was part of the idea of it. And, as the transition with the civil rights and everything, all that kind of went away because it kind of got the, I think, black stereotyped. I was kind of young when all that was happening, but I just remember it. And they would be singing songs and dancing. As I said, Al Jolson was someone who was popular that I recall.
Yeah.
That would be doing that. So,
Yeah. Al Jolson would have been in the 20s though, I think.
well, yeah, but I mean, that carried through. They would
right,
perform
sure.
on the showboats.
Right,
And like I
right.
said, Lowell used in the summertime would have a week-long celebration of going to the showboat on the river. And
Yeah.
Lowell's by Grand Rapids, not too far.
Right. I don't remember that at all. I would have been a first year college, fifth year student that year, 5960. I sorry, I just don't remember it at all.
Well, I no, that never, while I was there, because part of that class, I think was when I first got there, was the sixth year of some of those people that were in there. I think, well, Chuck Howley, I think, was there 2 years, but they never did anything after that. I think they kind of changed for whatever reason, but Bob Lasinski was really energetic and did a lot. They did a lot of things with in singing, where we used to have these like plays or single. I don't know. They would take a musical and then they'd write a song and I can't think of one now, but they would translate it to St. Joe's, and they would put it on. But a lot of it was that Bob Lasinski was really good at doing that. Jim Gardner from Traverse City had a tremendous voice, and they took advantage of that. He had a beautiful voice, or has one still, maybe. And there were others. There wasn't a lot to do. So, I mean, they burned their energy into kind of putting on these makeshift plays. And I'm trying to think of I remember they had a song that was real popular, and they changed the wording to fit St. Joe's. I don't know, maybe if you recall that, Norm, but
No, I
I don't know,
don't.
Frank, if you do or not. But I do remember that part.
What I do remember though, what you're talking about, I think, is the Christmas production. There was Gilbert and Sullivan plays were put on at Christmas time, and so when our family came to get us, they could watch the performance.
Oh, yeah.
No, they could. I know when I think it was the second year I was there, but they started in doing Gilbert and Sullivan. Maybe they replaced that other part.
Well, I think Gilbert and Sullivan was a long tradition at the seminary, because Gilbert and Sullivan go back to I think the 30s. And so when the seminary was very young, so I think after us, the trend was to go to a different musical. So just
It could have been, but I mean, part of it was Father Fay was the director, and then Father Rose played all the piano for the entire performance, which was incredible to me.
Yeah. What I remember about those performances, in line with what you're talking about, they had to change some characters because it was an all male cast.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there were modifications based on that.
Well, I played a sister or a cousin or an aunt in there was Pirates and what was
Pirates
the
of
other one?
Penzance.
Yeah.
That's
But,
Gilbert and
there
Sullivan.
was a first one. There was another one too, but I remember I was in that.
Another one.
I dressed as an ant. I had a skirt and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
There was kind of a chorus, and they had a character called Caddyshack who was Yeoman of the Guard. I think she was in that. That was the other one. She was. It was a she, and I can't remember who played. It was somebody who was tall. I remember they had some. She bragged that she had a beautiful shoulder.
Yeah, Caddyshaw was a character in the Mikado.
Oh,
was,
you're right, Paul. I'm sorry. Yeah, they had the Mikado and the Pirates. That's it. Thank you.
And I don't recall what the third show was. I had an interesting background on that. I went to public school, and I started playing trombone in 5th grade, maybe. I don't think I was ever really very good, but in 7th grade, I was asked to join the high school choir. I'm sorry, the high school band. Little Class D school. Our band was kind of small too, but we had some strong musicians in the high school, and so when I was in 7th grade, our music director pulled together a bunch of his friends to support the orchestra, and the band, at least the portion of the band that wasn't in the musical, supplemented the orchestra. They had a couple bass
Trombones?
No, bass strings. They had.
Oh, okay. Oh,
he had-
basses. Okay.
He had some strings in, and it was from the inside it sounded pretty good. So I knew the show from that. I have a very varied background.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, about your party at your place, did we bring items last year or did you provide everything?
I'll take care of it.
Seriously?
Yeah. That was my big question is what do we bring?
Now, just bring yourselves and any significant other that you might find along the roadside. No.
Been there, done that.
I don't think that'd be very significant. We just found them along the roadside.
Frank, I don't know if you heard, but the date was changed to the 18th of September.
Yeah.
Later.
Well, I have something to share. When you're ready,
Go ahead.
go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I took a tour of Grand Rapids on Thursday, July 4th, and we stopped by the seminary, and she drove into St. Henry's parking lot first, and not much different there. Then she went around the block and came in the main entrance. The semicircular drive is still there. Of course, all the 4 buildings are still there the way they were. And then she drove along between the convent and the main building to the back. And of course, as you know, there's buildings going on. As I remember, she saw 3 houses that were completed, others in process. And after being in the area again, I shouldn't say seeing because I couldn't see it, but how many, aren't there supposed to be 31 houses
47, I think.
being built, something like that?
Yeah.
My wife said, absolutely plenty of room for that. I guess in my mind, I was thinking the sports area was a smaller place. But the main reason I wanted to share this is not for information, because you know probably all that. But I was amazed at my emotional response. I was almost overwhelmed by being there. And the only thing I can come up with is driving in that semicircular drive was like going there the first day. And I was scared out of my mind, what the heck I was getting myself into. And I don't remember that first day though, but I'm sure what happened Didn't older students greet the new students at the door and take them into where they belong? Does that sound familiar?
Hmm.
I don't,
I do not remember going into the building with my family and going to where my bed was going to be and all that kind of stuff. So I think they just dropped me off. Well, not dropped me off, but stopped there, and I got out, took my stuff, and an older student accompanied me to where I would be, where my bed would be. Does that sound familiar?
No,
I can't recall. The only thing I can recall is, sort of waving goodbye to my parents. They were parked on the semicircular drive. I mean, that was like trauma. I mean, that's the first time.
Yeah.
By yourself.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so that sounds right then. So somebody older came along or was there with you and took you in. And
Probably.
I remember also was all of us gathering in that area on the lawn for a picture of the whole student body.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one, I think when we were in the second year, it was the case of Bishop Green coming back to the seminary to celebrate a mass.
Right.
And then afterwards, we all kind of gathered on the lawn out in front, and they took one of those really nice pictures. I have that on our website, along with a couple of other shots that were taken. It seemed to like, and Jim, maybe you can verify this. It seems like there were maybe about 4 or 5 large group shots in front of the seminary for the period from maybe about, well, I know that Dick Howley, or Chuck Howley, he was in the 59, he started in 55, I think. So between 55 and into the early 60s, there seemed to have been like maybe 4 group shots in the front.
Okay.
And they stopped it. I only actually remember one that happened. You're right. I remember the group shot, but I only remember one time.
Correct, yeah.
Hey, Norb, I got an interesting point for you.
Yeah.
You were there on July 4th?
Yeah.
That's what you
2 days
said?
ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Last
Well,
week.
Tom Dalton was in the back shooting video at that time.
Not when we were there because my wife saw nobody. There was no.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
he took some nice video. I wanted to get a nice sort of a pan shot of
good.
some of and it's the next update that I put up. Well, I'll put it up there. But when you see the actual buildings and the film, you realize the massive construction that was there. I was trying to figure out.
Right.
He mentions the street names that are associated with that property now.
Oh, really?
And I have to go back and take a look at some of the layout plans because they had all of the streets in they call it the 2080 Union Homes.
Oh.
I wish they'd come up with a better name.
You mean they're not Moran or Shaw or anything?
Yeah.
So there'll be streets.
Right.
Well, there'll have to be streets you have the names of the new streets.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was kind of curious how they came up with those names. I mean, were they significant people in the history of dwelling place? But that was quite a long time that they came up with the plans for that. So probably we're talking.
Do you have the names of the streets? Can you tell us?
The only one that I can think of right off the top of my head was Martin.
Oh. Well, no, I don't know. That wouldn't be. That's the street that's already there. They wouldn't name it Martin. Martin is the street east of the seminary.
Well,
yes. I don't know.
Maybe they. Well, anyway, we can check with Tom Dalton and those maps that I had put up there before. But when like you were saying, Norb, when you see the scope of that, it's just, when they were first announced, I thought, like you and maybe a lot of others, there's not enough room for 47 houses back there. It's just
there are, yeah. Yeah, I was kind of.
Anybody
How big
remember
are the
when?
houses?
Pardon?
How big are the houses?
Oh, they're low income housing, so
Yeah, they're not very big. I think
we're
the
only
lots are
talking
small.
probably 1,300 square.
yeah, I don't know how big, but some of them are 2-story, some of them are 1-story.
Right. And according to dwelling place, the first residents are supposed to be moving in like mid-July.
Oh,
That's when you see one picture in particular that Tom took, you can see cars parked in the driveway, and it's hard to tell whether those are workers or what. Maybe those were the first residents in that area, but it's really heartening to see what's become of the seminary grounds, and
but it's also it certainly wasn't me. Sue said there were a lot of cars in the parking lot, which would be for the residents of the main building.
Well, that and Samaritas Child and Family Services, they have what they call a service center, which was our old gym.
Okay.
Yeah, so that generates a lot of those cars that are back.
That's
there.
a big place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does anybody remember the fence that was around the property? I know we had the controversy of the barbed wire at the top, but that was added to a cyclone fence that was already there, correct?
No.
Yes and no, I think.
It was done at the
The whole thing was new. The whole thing was new.
Fence and the.
There was no fence at all.
There was no fence at all initially, huh?
No, there wasn't. Yeah.
When was the fence built? In 62?
No, 60. I was there.
In
60, it's in my book, and I forgot what I just read it.
And what, Frank, wasn't it our second year that happened?
I was going to say is our first or second year, so it had to have been about 60 or 61.
Right. That would have been
exactly.
Much of it would have been our first.
I was surprised how late it was. I thought when I looked in my book, it was in the spring of 61. I thought it was earlier than that because I graduated in June. So
all of us from the class of 60 to 66 know that it went up while we were there. We thought it was to hold us in because we were such a bunch of rascals.
Was there a sidewalk on the outside of that fence along the curb, or was there a
Say again?
Oh, right to the street.
not on Martin or Winchell, but on Union Boulevard, there's a sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think there's on the other two.
There were people starting to walk across our property too, and it's a concern to them.
That's what they said. Yes, that was the reason for it.
Yeah, they were cutting corners out there in the rear.
Yeah,
which that's understandable. I can accept that. But I never did get an explanation of why they put the barbed wire facing in.
Because there were a lot of people that were doing nefarious things after.
They were sneaking out. Yeah.
Yeah.
The what?
They would go over to the ice cream store or something and.
Oh, but there was no fence on Burton.
Well, they'd get out. That's why they were.
No, they never put a fence up on Burton Street.
They never.
So it was open to go from the seminary to the ice cream place.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if you do that, if you're going to go to Miller's, you're not going to go from the front door. You're going to sneak around back and back. You know.
Well, right. But one of my classmates did. But I think that was when he was at St. Henry's. So
I remember.
It's not far across the street.
Well, you guys in St. Henry's were rebels. I mean, we wouldn't even thought of that the first couple of years that we were there, would we?
Yeah.
I remember people in conversation over the last couple of years pointed out that Monsignor Shaw would kind of keep an eye on the back property by going up into those stairwells he probably had them built for himself to kind of keep track of who was doing what in the back. But having his office there and his room there on the third floor gave him a perfect way to keep track of the back and the front of.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He was a forward observer.
Well, that's one way to put it, right?
Do you know what a forward observer is?
No.
In the Army, it's someone that goes ahead and looks for targets and then calls them back for the cannons to shoot at them.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yeah, that describes him.
Well, you know why the stairwells were put in.
Wasn't it fire marshal? Was this?
Fire, yeah.
Yeah.
It was for in case of a fire. Yeah, they wanted, and we never used those stairwells. We were never allowed to be in them.
Right. Except for somebody there named Bill something who managed to
It was quicker to go down those to where I had to be.
Had to be. Just had to be.
Well, it also got you into the attic above the third floor, which
What about it? What was your question?
Didn't have a question.
no question.
Well, what was in the attic? What they keep there?
Just old broken down desks and
Oh.
it was pretty dirty up there. Yeah, on that part.
Okay.
And a lot of it didn't have flooring. You were kind of walking among the joists and things.
Wow.
But
Oh, yeah.
Where are you talking about?
above the third floor dormitory,
There was a fourth floor dormitory put in.
right, in the front, but along the Union Street side, that was never developed.
Oh,
there.
on the fourth side, on the fourth floor.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was up there only once, and that was just a few years ago.
Really?
Pete,
I had
did we ever finish your comments about the Latin Mass, or did you have somewhere you were going with that?
Oh, now I remember. I think, yeah, you confirmed my memory about how that worked.
Is it really coming back in big numbers, Pete? Or
Mhm.
just a few parishes?
I know one parish in Grand Rapids that's Sacred Heart is pretty strong into that.
But Sacred Heart has order priests, don't they?
No, it's a priest
the
from
others?
Massachusetts who works here. I don't think he's an order priest. There's a priest was at St. Stephen's Parish named Nolan, who one Wednesday evening a week, I think, would have a mass with his back to the congregation, to the assembly. I don't know if he was in Latin or not, though.
Gosh, that's your old parish, isn't it? Sacred
Yeah.
Heart.
Yeah.
Sirico is there. He's not the pastor anymore, but he's still there.
Listen,
Felicki
was Monsignor Felicki was.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, years ago.
Oh, yeah. Right from the seminary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he
His
came in like
nephew, I
59,
went to
60.
school with his nephew at St. Thomas.
Oh,
They, when as a younger person, they were trying to recruit him for baseball. Minor league contract. He was a good pitcher.
what's interesting for what I learned recently about the Latin Mass having a resurgence, it's from young people who never experienced it.
Right.
God, I missed that. Could you say it again?
Yeah, it's the people who want the Latin Mass are younger people who never experienced it in their own lives.
That's
Which surprised me because I would think that the old people that had the Latin Mass wanted to come back, but it's young people.
well, to add to that, I've read a couple articles where that is the fact. The younger people are going back to that, and up in Leelanau, and that there's a really conservative parish up there in a little town called Cedar.
Yep.
And they have, all the old traditions and everything. And the bishop of the diocese up there, he doesn't make a big issue out of it. But a lot of their vocations come out of that parish.
You,
And that is a
it's
nationwide.
interesting you mentioned that. That's where I came from. Not that parish, but Cedar was my mailing address where I grew up.
Gillspear is the,
And I know exactly who you're talking about.
or Isidore.
I've been to a mass at Holy Rosary in Cedar, and the priest is quite traditional. He wears a cassock, or he used to anyway. The last time I saw him. Mm-hmm.
Do any of you have
Well,
any?
welcome. The church is full of at Sunday Mass. The church is full.
Do any of you have a burning desire to go back to Latin masses?
Me? Absolutely not.
Nope.
It's the same thing here. And the thing that I worry about with that is that this church, instead of maybe going forward, is retreating to the back and become maybe a little less relevant.
Mm-hmm.
That's what concerns me about that.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a priest by the name of I'm sorry. We had a priest by the name of Father Daryl Roman, who kind of got on the outs with the Archbishop here, went to the Grand Rapids area. I'm not sure he's assigned any parishes, but he's anti-Pope Francis, and a lot of this stuff believes everything should be in Latin. So I don't know, Pete, if you ever heard of him. Kind of a rabble-rouser type.
Have not.
Okay, he was...
See that Archbishop was excommunicated this past week?
Yeah,
No,
he
not
was
that
the
one.
ambassador to the United States, the papal legate.
Yeah,
Well, he was. He was not. He was not ambassador now. He was previous.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Vigano.
But they're also involved in some kind of controversy with the Brits on some property or something and money. Somewhere in the Korea, they were getting money from real estate or something. I don't know. There's some other deal.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about that.
That's been in there for a while. It comes up every once in a while. Isn't that the guy that just got excommunicated? Wasn't he a buddy of the Pope Benedict? I think he was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Probably.
And Cardinal.
Getting back to the Latin for a second here, that made me think a couple things. First, I've wondered whether Latin is still the official language of the church. Is all of the papal documents, are they issued and coming out of the Vatican? Is that still done first in Latin and then other translations? Is that anybody?
Yes and no. My understanding is that Pope Francis writes his encyclicals and letters in his language, which could be Spanish or
Is
Italian.
it Brazilian or Portuguese or
no,
no?
he's Argentina.
Spanish.
Argentina, so
Argentinian.
Spanish,
Okay.
yeah. And then
Spanish.
it's translated into Latin for the official language.
What about the speaking language? What do you think of a conclave coming up?
Right.
Are those cardinals speaking to one another in Latin?
No, I'm sure they're not. Especially, I say that categorically, but I really don't. I've never heard one way or the other. But the reason I say that is the last synod, that's what you're referring to, synod, and last year was attended by 80 lay people who had votes. They had voting rights. So the language certainly would not have been conducted in Latin.
well, I think the delegates are probably, it's like when the UN has a meeting and everybody has, earphones and whatever
Yeah, like,
is saying, it's translated to them in their language.
Like the UN, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm not sure that Rome works quite that way yet.
Mhm.
I think Latin is the formal language of what's officially published, and everything is translated into vernaculars and issued in vernaculars.
Right.
I don't know who argues over what for, whether this word was translated correctly or that word was translated correctly. I think the actual development of doctrine, or the statement of what's official, is a little bit more negotiated and nuanced, but my understanding, talking to priests who have studied over there, is that one or two guys or three or four guys are able to converse in Latin enough to get the guts of the course in Latin, but then they teach everybody in vernacular, kind of like we studied physics.
Yeah, that's a good example. What was I going to say about that? Oh, Latin is the official language of the Latin Rite of the Roman Catholic Church.
That's good.
There's a
Good
number
correction,
of
Norb.
Eastern Rite would certainly be Greek.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Good point.
There's a few other rites as well, like.
Well, it could be Armenian or something like that,
Mhm.
or Coptic.
Yes,
Coptic,
right.
if that's still a
Right.
language, or
Right.
that could
following.
I live in the area that has a lot of Chaldeans, and so
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a Chaldean parish just down the street from us.
Okay.
Before I know Jim Blanchard and Norb, before you guys sneak out, I had a question about what shows up in those bulletins. Remember, I had pointed out that an interesting part for people like us was the register of students that listed all the people in the 6 years of
Right.
the preceding scholastic year.
Right.
And the question that I had was, in some of those editions, and I noted down in particular, the register that showed 1959-60 students, and this showed up in some other previous ones. There were some students who were listed as special high school or special college, and I don't know what that means. I never recalled seeing it before this time. So maybe Jim or Norb, you have an idea what that meant.
They had to come on the short bus.
I would love to answer that question because I was one of those.
Oh,
So I can tell you exactly what it was. I came in 10th grade, so I had to catch up. I started in 56. So the bulletin for 57, 58 would have shown me as a special.
ah,
Yeah. And now there were a number of us. John Mullally was a special that year too.
oh, really?
Yeah. And Tom Rinkovich, I think, may have been. I'm forgetting who else. There are several other ones that you would certainly not remember. There were 3 that came from Cedar that year. But so the list of students in the bulletin would be those who finished the previous year.
So does that mean that you're like these recruits that they get from Michigan? They come early, declare their college or something?
Right, yeah, right. Well, no, I was late. But
Just keep an eye
I
on
think-
you. Keep an eye.
I think by the time the next bulletin came out, then I was listed with my class. It was only that first year that I was a special student.
But Norb,
This
But
is
there were a
my,
lot of them the year that I started. I think there were a dozen, at least a dozen, and they weren't all in my class. And I think you might appreciate this. I had Latin 1 as a special student for 1 semester. And then I joined my second year Latin class in the second semester. I was not prepared.
jeez.
It was terrible. I was so confused. So I had Latin 1 and Greek 1 the same year.
Oh, wow.
And I came from a small school in Leelanau County. We didn't study foreign language at all. So that was so new to me. But after the first year, I adjusted pretty well.
And Jim, Blanchard, did you want to say something about that?
well, I was going to say something that Norb kind of covered it, how they would have a special curriculum to have them catch up. They didn't necessarily have all the same classes.
Right.
Well, thank you for your explanations.
Kind of staying with that a different way. Frank and I were in the last class that people came from Saginaw Diocese, because that class after the first year left and went to Saginaw. They had opened a new seminary there, St. Paul's. I don't know if it still exists or not. And there were nine classmates of that year. And when they left, I think it took the heart out of our class, because those were some of the brightest people in our class, and they were leaders, and we were just, no one said anything except they knew they were leaving. But in my opinion, it was kind of hard. There were there were a lot of really good people there. No one, even talked about why it, I think, affected our class, which I always found strange. But anyways, just an observation.
I think that's a great observation. And the reason I jump on it or am interested in it is because when I was writing my book about St. Joe's, I wondered what effect that had on St. Joe's when these students weren't coming from Saginaw anymore. You said there were 9 in that class.
Yes.
And, I can tell you one other question. The St. Paul Seminary, I think, closed in 1971. It was only open 10 years.
Oh,
the building is still there. It's now a Catholic high school. And also the Diocesan Center is in that building. The Saginaw Diocese Center is in the building where St. Paul Seminary used to be.
I had another interesting that's related to that, but it was after the seminary. It's a long story, but I was born in Mount Pleasant, and and was baptized at Sacred Heart, and then my parents left and went to Grand Rapids. But I happened to be up there after the seminary and I was so I stopped at the rectory, and because I knew that someone that I had been in the seminary with in the year that we worked together at Saginaw was the assistant pastor. So I wanted to go and see him, and I hadn't seen him for a long, long time. And anyways, I came in, introduced myself, and the secretary, I said, "Could I come in?" And she acted kind of strangely. So I waited, and she walked in and saw the pastor. And I came and, went to see the pastor, and he told me that this particular person had just left the the priesthood with a lady. And I don't want to get into names and everything. I was kind of stunned. I was just kind of trying to see him, how's it going, all that kind of stuff. But that was kind of strange.
So who was it, if you don't mind?
John Dubord. He was from Midland. He was next to me in the when we started, the bunk beds. He was in the set of bunk beds just next to me.
Okay.
Because they did things by alphabetical order.
Who was the pastor at Sacred Heart then?
I don't know.
When did you go there? Sorry, let me ask that question. What year was it?
I can't tell you exactly, Norm. It probably was in the 70s or 80s, something like that.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that question is in 1971, Mount Pleasant became part of the Saginaw Diocese when the Gaylord Diocese was created.
Okay.
Father John Tomey was the pastor, and so
right. I know. No, Father Tomey wasn't there. It was a different priest.
So it was either before or later.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because that's how John Tomey and Fred Kafka ended up in the Saginaw Diocese. Because they were both from Grand Rapids Diocese.
Well, another interesting story. You may or may not know him, but one of the classmates I started with was someone named Paul Sears. And then he went to Saginaw and he left. And he became the president of the bank in Mount Pleasant.
Oh, okay.
And what happened was that he was going for an interview. And he used to write reviews for the movies in the newspaper for Mount Pleasant. But anyways, he was going for a job there. And the guy said, some guy came by and he asked him about where he was going. He said, well, I'm going up to see so-and-so for a job. Well, then the guy left. Well, it turns out that he wasn't going up for that job, but he got hired eventually to be the bank, the president of the bank. And the reason he got hired is that the guy that he was replacing was the guy he asked for directions. And the guy told him he was coming. And the guy that was the hire thought he told him, you better hire this guy. So he was hired just because that guy had told him to told him to hire, told him that he was coming. And he thought that he was lobbying for him to be hired as the bank president.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've got something to add on to all of this. When Saginaw broke off, that did affect our class. But our class was also like the harbinger of the seminary just ceasing to exist. And I think it's just history and demographics. The class that started in 1959, say they were 14 years old, would have been born in the 40s. And they would have been born after the Second World War. And when that war was over, society was not the same. You didn't raise your kids the same. Nothing was the same. And I think what happened is it was such an important change. And the seminary would never.
I don't know how to get this picture.
But the seminary would never know that happened until it hit. Because I think it's a baby boom thing, people born between like 44 and say 48, they all hit it at the same time. And it's just, I think, the population hit the wall. And I think it just failed because like I was talking with Al Grabinski, and his class had 67 or 68, a very large class, and only 2 were ordained from that class. And one had a problem with alcoholism, and another one, and you guys know this, had a problem with being too familiar with young people. So, we can talk about the Saginaw thing, and that was important, but I think what happened is we had a huge society change in how you raised your kids and how you grew up, and that the seminary system never saw it coming. I don't know as anybody could have seen it was coming, and it just didn't work anymore.
I agree. That's a good point. I think also what happened, and I hesitate to say this because you may interpret it incorrectly, but Vatican II, I think, had a big impact on.
Yeah,
some.
I agree. That Norm, I agree with you. I was going to comment on that.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the volume just right.
Stas, you were in that class. You would know a little bit about that group. So
No, I was with
Al,
Yagerlener and Stein and Pete Garthe, Paul Banner,
I don't know how to get my picture up there.
Gebhard. We were all together.
Yep.
Frank Marfia. Frank was a year younger than us, but we're all born in probably 46.
That's because I skipped a grade. I guess the Catholic Church used to allow some children to skip a grade.
Yeah.
No, I was the youngest kid in our class.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you were smart enough to skip like that, Frank.
You mentioned Al Gravinsky.
I was pretty immature though.
Somebody mentioned Al Gravinsky, and I have a question.
Yeah.
He had an older brother, Joe.
yeah,
Who was
Yeah.
a year behind me. Do you know
Right.
anything about him?
Right.
Because I last time I emailed him, it came back with nothing, not undeliverable. So I just wonder if he passed away. Anybody know?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
You would have been 80. 80.
Yeah. Okay.
Al and I, well, shoot, we sing in the choir together at St. Catherine's and stuff, and he's not mentioned anything of that nature. So,
Oh yeah, I'm sure he would have. Yeah.
he was from Muskegon, weren't the Gravinskys
Yeah.
from Muskegon?
Yeah.
Right.
Egan Heights.
Oh, Bill, you're
Yeah.
from Muskegon, right? Yagerlener? Yeah.
Correct. Right.
yeah. But he lives in,
No, I know he lives by you, but I mean, they came from Muskegon. I didn't know
Yeah.
if Joe was in Muskegon area yet or
I
something.
don't know.
Hey, I got a question that sort of it just came up earlier in the conversation. Well, when somebody was mentioning priests who were from different orders, or their church or that parish was run by a different order, and it kind of relates to the question I had about the whole Indian schools thing. Well, in the Indian schools disaster, they mentioned an order of nuns. I think it was the Sisters of Notre Dame or something like that ran that school up in I forget where it is now, Harbor Springs. Harbor Springs. But it was not clear to me whether the parish that was right next door to that school, whether they had any say-so over how that school was governed or what their policies were. And that kind of got me into this whole question of what role, if any, does a diocese have in supervising or the administration of churches or schools that are done or managed by other religious orders rather than I just when I read those articles about the Indian school up there in Harbor Springs, they had a comment from the Gaylord Diocese that said they were cooperating with the investigations and so on, but and then I looked back, and sure enough, at one point in its however many decades, Harbor Springs was part of the Grand Rapids Diocese until Gaylord was was set up. So did
Till
the Grand
71.
Rapids diocese have any, or does any diocese have any control over priests who are, and in this case, religious orders who are operating within their geographic boundaries? I guess they
Yes
throw
and
this
no,
open
I
to-
think. There's an example. As my understanding would be that they are invited, the bishop invites them into the diocese. And I think that they kind of oversee the overall behavior, but the actual, you're talking about running the actual, school or whatever. I think that is left to the school to run. And if they wanted to have a council of people that would help them run, I think they can do that. But the bishop does not, I don't believe the bishop gets involved with the governance other than allowing them, giving them permission to be in that school, because as far as the school or whatever, I think the diocese owns it.
I think you're pretty correct on that, Dick.
Yep.
But I also think that that varies from government to government and diocese to diocese, depending on
Charging.
the people who put it together and how things develop from that. I think it's a much more organic thing than strictly an organizational structure.
Well, it's not only Paul, it's not only schools or whatever, but it's also hospitals too.
That's correct.
And parishes.
Yeah.
Yes, right. I agree. That's what I was referencing.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, that
And I agree with everything that's been said from my experience. But I just want to say that there's a connection between the bishop and the school or parish or whatever, but it's not the same thing. The personnel running the school or parish are subservient, that's not the right word, obedient to their superiors in the order.
Yeah.
well, yes, they are. But I mean, they have to run the school. The bishop isn't involved with that in any way, except
Right. Yeah,
he's
I
a
agree with you.
titular kind of head.
Yeah.
I think Paul's right that it was organic, but in fact, one of the things that I always felt was unfair in the training of priests is the fact that they were given no education in business in the sense of management or administration.
Right.
And I think that hurts them as far as being effective leaders, even religious leaders.
Right. I agree.
There's so much, but there's so much to know. It's just unbelievable. Not only the religious part, but this is just to know how to run a place. I mean,
Right.
Pete can probably tell you some instances that there's legal issues that you got to understand, and
Right.
all
Yep.
the other stuff that gets involved with it.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I'm in a parish that's large enough. We have a business manager.
yeah. But even with
That's
that,
new.
I mean, you really have to have a good sense of how to a little bit of leadership in the sense.
Right. Oh, sure. Right.
Now, it's sort of another angle in here relates to, as a seminarian, it never occurred to me that I would just be able to, as if I were to be ordained, that I could just decide that, well, I don't like this diocese anymore, so I'll go somewhere else. And
Free agent.
we didn't know anything about. I'm just drawing a blank on it. The Irishman, Father.
Faye?
Pardon?
Father Fay. Father
Right.
Fay.
Father Fate. Right. It looks like Well, came from Ireland,
Right.
but I mean, how does a priest kind of decide? Well, I think I'll try Grand Rapids.
I don't know. He was our assistant pastor at St. Thomas in Grand Rapids, besides teaching in the seminary.
He would, now that's an interesting question to research, and I'm sure every
Yeah.
priest would have a different story. Priest would come, right now, for example, we have priests coming from India or South America to serve.
Right.
And once they're here, they're totally under the supervision of the bishop. I'm sure.
What about the priest, though, that decides they want to go in the military and be a chaplain?
That's up to the bishop.
Yeah.
Well, they can request it, though. I mean, I'm just giving for
Right,
instance, the other way, but still.
Right, yeah. Yeah, they can request, the priest can request anything, but it's going to be up to the bishop to just whether he can or not.
Right.
Yeah, we have a priest in this diocese, I think he's retired now, but he went to Alaska to serve. And he had permission from our bishop and got permission from their bishop, because he has to do, there's both ends. He has to have permission from the receiving bishop as well.
Well, the other name that is known to most of us was Father Weisenkopf.
Right.
And, with his, it wasn't until much later with his alcoholism, we decided he just vanished from the scenes of our area. But then he showed up later at, what's the university in Chicago?
Loyola?
Loyola, right.
He ended up there?
Yeah. And
oh, wow.
Did Frank know him?
No. My wife is a graduate of Loyola, and I have a daughter-in-law graduate of Loyola, but no,
You there.
Oh, which Frank? Frank Unger?
Knuckle down.
Scribe Cencias. But I mean, he's another sort of a classic example of just vanishing from one diocese and then showing up somewhere else. I don't know whether he moved to another seminary or just straight to Loyola or what, but it seems like somebody has to vet him to decide whether they want him within their organization or within their diocese.
This may be inappropriate for me to say it, but I think it's related. The whole sex abuse crisis is relative to what you're talking about.
That's true.
Where is the discipline? Where's the order? Where's the direction? And how are decisions made? Well, sometimes they're not. And sometimes I would suspect that Father Weisenkopf got moved to Chicago because the Bishop of Grand Rapids didn't want him there, didn't want him in the seminary. That would be my guess. I mean, and that's contrary to what my other thought was. He got sent to the seminary to get him out of the parish. That is total speculation. I have no basis for making those statements. But it
didn't seem. I
didn't know he was an alcoholic until many years later.
I have a personal thing to comment about. Albert and I probably remember this. We had a priest at our St. Peter's in Douglas, Michigan, who was an alcoholic, and he was frequently drunk on the altar. I mean, he was very wobbly at times. And as an altar boy, you memorize your responses, and if you don't get the right response, the beginning from the priest, you kind of feel stuck. What do you say next?
Yeah.
So I know that the parish that I was a part of, they petitioned the bishop in Grand Rapids to remove the guy. He had been there 2 years, and he was really not a good priest.
Frank, though, you know what your response is if you don't know what to say?
Amen.
You know God's telephone number, don't you?
No.
Echo Spirit 220.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just call that one.
So
didn't Father Fay come from California?
He went to California, I think, Stas, after Grand Rapids.
After? Okay,
I believe so. I can't confirm it, but I somehow heard or whatever.
So since we're talking about Latin and being an altar boy, do you remember the response to Intro Ibo Rotary Day?
A Deum qui laetificat juventutem meam.
Very good. Excellent.
Did you say 42 tomatoes?
Yeah, 42 tomatoes. We used to have contests when they said the confiteor to see who could hit their breast the hardest. You know, you'd hear this thump, 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 bump, 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 thump, thump.
My most traumatic Latin experience was when I was in the elementary or the grade school at St. Joe's in Muskegon, and you know, I had to get out my altar server card and you know, be able to read the Latin in there. We had no idea what those Latin words, but what the heck, we were in like maybe the 4th or 5th grade.
Right.
And I can remember sitting there in the kitchen with my mother, and I would read this thing, and I came to the part where it was supposed to be sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, and I said, "So shit." And all of a sudden it hit me. Oh my God, what did I just say? And I was so physically upset that I just ran out of the room and hung my head in shame to say something like that.
That's in the Gloria. That's in the Gloria. I think Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sicut erat.
Oh no, that's in
principio
no, wait a minute.
semper.
Maybe that's in. I don't know. I should know that.
That was right in the introit, wasn't? Or the not
What?
the very first part when
As it was in the beginning,
it
is
was
now
on
in
the front
result.
side of the card.
Hey, Bill, the ironic part is that your understanding and pronunciation of Latin is about the same as these young priests that want to say Latin masses.
But you know, a lot of priests were alcoholics because I remember at St. Thomas when Father Fay was there, Frank Fallon and Mike Whalen had the job of going over to Monsignor Sweeney's house and emptying all the whiskey bottles out of the basement because he was afraid someone's going to see them, and they had a lot of them out of there. So, I mean, what do? You know, what else do these guys do?
Getting back to the Latin.
Anybody still run into Dick Yost?
The question?
Anybody seen? Is it Yost? Dick? Who am I thinking of?
Host.
Dick Host. I'm sorry.
I saw him at Father Danner's funeral.
Funeral. How's he doing?
He didn't drive, so the other priest drove.
He's had some hip issues for years, but as far as I know, he's doing okay.
Okay, good.
He still volunteers at God's Kitchen once a week.
And I think last year he celebrated at church in Spring Lake, someplace around there.
Helping out maybe because of the short.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah.
It kind of related to this, getting back to Latin for a second. And do modern priests, do they learn Latin anywhere? Or, I mean, Jim Blanchard, you mentioned that was a question about some of the priests who are coming into different dioceses from other parts of the world, and Latin is like just a memorization of the words. Do seminaries or prospective priests learn Latin anymore, or does anybody know?
To my knowledge, they do not, Bill. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
I agree, although I don't know either.
I think that
It may depend what seminary they go to.
Mhm.
this
I mean,
is just an impression.
Secondary
This is just-
it requires Latin. They're kind of conservative.
This is just an impression, but I think that at least in the Lansing diocese, they're encouraged to learn Spanish more than anything else. Probably Latin, no. From my viewpoint, fortunately or unfortunately, from the University of Michigan, my bachelor's degree is in Latin, so I had studied it for 8 years.
Wow.
But I can tell as life's gone on and everything that it was valuable in the sense of really being able to be a good writer and understanding grammar and things, and also pronunciations of words that like in Spanish or even in Greek, or that have Greek references and things that
Romantic language.
I don't think we subconsciously learned all this stuff, but what an incredible gift it was in what we did for other things in our life that, in the sense of communication with language.
Yeah, good point.
Priests used to recite the breviary, didn't they?
That's correct.
Was the breviary in Latin?
Yes.
I can't remember. All I remember is Father McKinney walking into the trash barrel all the time during study hall. But I still have the book that we used in at St. Mary's, and it was in English. But I thought that you're right, that it might have been in Latin.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we sang the Vespers, they were in Latin. The Psalms were in Latin.
Right.
And I can't remember the prayers that they said with them, if they were or not. The Magnificat was said in Latin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
While we're on languages, and Jim, it was interesting that some of the old bulletins that you pulled out, I was going through the curriculum, and I was going to look up to see when Spanish was first offered as a language. Some of the ones from the 50s, I can't remember the exact year, the only foreign language that was available, like in our third and fourth year, was German. And then subsequent years, French was added, but they also said that German, Italian, and Polish were available by special arrangement. Now, I can't recall anybody in our era learning Polish or German. Does that sound familiar to any guys?
Yeah. When I read that in the bulletin, when I was researching for the book, I wrote, I thought, this is leftover from previous bulletins. They didn't edit it out.
I agree.
That's my conclusion. Because in the 20s, 100 years ago, Polish was the preferred second language.
Well, look at all the parishes that in Grand Rapids that were Polish parishes.
Exactly.
Sacred Heart, St. Adalbert's,
Yeah.
St. Isidore's. At least
and I'm sure there were a number of German ones too. Now,
St. Mary's.
I can answer Bill's question. The personal experience, some of us in my class, it was my first year there. Maybe it was the second year we asked Father to teach us German on the side, and he agreed. So there were 5 or 6 of us that attended an extra class once a week to learn some German.
And who was it that was
Father
the instructor?
Father Rose knew German? Wow.
Yeah. And so we did this for several months, and all of us said, we don't want to do this anymore, but we don't want to insult Father Rose and ask him not to do it anymore. So we're panicking about that, what to say. And we went to a class, and Father Rose said, I can't do this anymore. I don't have time. So that ended that. So I certainly didn't learn much. But I thought there was French and Spanish when I was there.
There was, because you had Father Aslaniak and Father Father Rose.
But Bill said French was added later.
Well, it could have been, but I think that they probably wanted a foreign language in the curriculum. And it depended upon who they had teaching that would teach the language, I think. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
But the most practical one in a way is Spanish, in my opinion, for Grand Rapids in that area.
How come I had to learn Greek?
That's different. That's a different question.
Yeah.
Father Roslaniak was a Spanish teacher
Yeah.
when I was there.
Yeah,
And I,
He was for
and
us. too.
I took Spanish.
I took it too.
Did anybody take French?
I think
Yes.
Malali did, maybe. Chris.
I did.
Paul, you took it?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
2 years of it?
Yes.
Just 2 years.
I
Right.
took
I
2
was under
years.
the impression that Father Rose, the classes with Father Rose were all in French, that he didn't speak English during the teaching of it. And you guys had to kind of figure things out from the context. Was that?
In the French,
That's the preferred way to learn a foreign language.
yeah, we spoke a lot of French, and our textbook was at that point, it was a fairly new curriculum for learning French in the language, as it was that the book, you develop the vocabulary and syntax, all together in one continuing process. It was a curriculum that was developed to teach people French in a French society.
Wasn't it, didn't they have a lab? Didn't
Yeah,
they
don't you
start
remember
quite a lab?
those? Don't you
Pardon me?
remember those face helmets that you would
Yeah, you had
stick your head in?
headphones or something and
Right.
yeah,
I don't
they
remember.
were
I
trying
remember-
that out.
That didn't
And I
have anything
remember
to
that
do-
we were in Spanish lab when they announced that President Kennedy had been shot.
Right.
We were in Father Rose's office listening to French radio.
Hmm.
And and I think it was Chris Mulcahy that translated it, that said, "Is that what he said?" And Father Rose said, "I think so." And then he switched over to English, and about that time, Mitch announced it over the public address system.
I remember Monsignor Moran announcing it. I was in St. Henry's Hall walking in the hallway
Yeah.
and Monsignor Moran announced it at St. Henry's. So that's what I remember.
Mm-hmm. That's
He
where
said that you'll never forget that in your life when something like that is announced.
Right.
Right.
Now, what about, we knew that Father Leo was our instructor in Spanish, but where did he learn Spanish? Does anybody know? I mean,
He went
He's
to
Polish.
study in
He's Polish.
Texas.
didn't he go to San Antonio, Frank?
Yes, he did go to
Yes.
San Antonio, but I did
That's
not
what
know
I-
that when I went there.
Oh, you
That's what I
didn't?
was-
No, I mean, Roslaniak was probably 10 years older than us, right?
Yeah.
More than that, I
What,
think. A little bit more.
what nationality? What nationality was Roslaniak?
Polish.
He was
Polish.
I think he was Polish.
That's
But he was very fluent in Spanish.
Yeah,
Mhm.
his first name was Leo, so.
And Monsignor Moran, I remember this, so Jim Hannick doesn't. When we were invited back to the seminary in June of '66 after
Yeah.
we graduated. I think they usually made the assignments that last week of school.
Right.
Is that a memory for those of you who were in different years?
Yeah, they did it, they told you when you you went through your, in quotes, graduation. I think they did it differently with you, but
Okay. But in our year, we were invited. They didn't make the decision. We were invited back to the seminary. Is that, you remember that, Albert?
Yes, we rode
You
together.
and I drove up together.
Yeah.
And my memory is, and Jim Hannock says he doesn't remember this at all. He asked for 2 volunteers to go to San Antonio. And Hannock raised his hand and nobody else did. And I looked around, why not? So I raised my hand. So that's how I ended up in San Antonio.
that was a good choice.
It was an excellent choice.
It's a nice town.
It is. It was a great experience. A lot of good friends I made down there. A lot of nice people.
It looks
I didn't get fluent in Spanish. I did get better in Spanish, but there was no fluency. No, none of the seminarians who were Hispanic, they were all English speaking. They were like 3rd or 4th generation. They were fluent in Spanish, but that wasn't their primary language. When we were in class, we went to the university, St. Mary's University, for most of our classes. So Spanish wasn't. The only thing I remember was that the nuns who did our cooking, they were all from Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Great cooks. We had great food in San Antonio, and they didn't speak a word of English. So that was the best place to practice your Spanish, was talking to the nuns.
Sounds like you should have lived with them and learned their Spanish.
Probably. You're probably right.
You would have ended up being a cook.
That too. The food was great, though.
You missed your calling, Frank.
You raised an interesting question for me, if I understood you right. After graduation, you were invited to a discussion about where you could go to major seminary?
Partly because they didn't make the decision at the end of our. You weren't in the seminary, but those of us. This is my memory, and it may be flawed, but there was a strike going on. There was a small strike. Some students were not attending class that last month of the school year.
Our class only, right?
Yeah, I think it might have. And there might have been some other grades too, but we.
No, just
Pete remembers some of this, don't you, Pete? There was a. We met with Monsignor Moran at least twice.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
And we had demands, and I don't think he really resolved them. But the one thing he did do was he decided not to make the assignments until sometime in the summer.
I do know this, though, when we were invited back to get the assignments, some of us were told we were going certain places. Remember, Pete, you and I and Paul Banner and were told we were going to Baltimore? Or isn't that the way you remember it?
Dave Hanley and I were in Peru. When the
so you didn't...
came out, and I heard about it while I was in Peru.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think the end of July or something.
You heard it from the Pope.
I should speak for myself then. I was told I was going to Baltimore. I said yes.
So that was a bit of a surprise that we were offered. At least I was offered a choice.
Yeah.
To volunteer to go to. It wasn't an ABC school. It was just one school, San Antonio.
I was working up north in the Woolston area, and I was not invited to any meetings. I don't know. I don't remember who told me where I was going, but
maybe it was just the 6 that were left. Maybe it was just the 6 that were left had to go to Baltimore then. I don't know.
Right.
Big trade. It was an NIL thing.
Well, being from the Lansing diocese, we knew exactly that we were going to go to Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
Oh, so when I graduated, the reason I asked the question is because in '61, when I graduated, I was given a letter from Monsignor Moran, assigning me to the seminary, and that's what we all got. There was no discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Monsignor Moran was just being diplomatic that summer, or that
could have been
end of the school year that he didn't. I don't know if that was one of our demands. I think one of our demands might have been that nobody wanted to go to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that was for sure.
And I'm not sure why. Do you remember that?
We were told that no one that had gone to Cincinnati was satisfied, and everybody was quitting.
Huh.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm one of those. That's where I was sent, and I quit after.
Yeah, but you were ahead of us.
I know. Oh, yeah,
But I
right,
mean, yeah, but that could have accumulated too.
right.
Is Sacred Heart Detroit now the theology
Yes,
school
yes.
for Detroit?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yes, I
I
have a
heard
good,
it's
a good
very
buddy.
conservative now.
Pardon? Say again, Pete?
I heard that it's very conservative.
Well,
Yeah.
from what I understand, one of my best buddies, of course, was from Detroit anyway, and still is, but he, of course, didn't have any choice. He went all the way through Sacred Heart from high school on up. He's Polish and went through there. And I would say yes, probably is. I don't have any personal direct relationship to that. Some others. How about Bill Gebhard would probably know better than I on that because he went there, right, Bill?
It has become pretty conservative. I hadn't been back there in umpteen years, but
Yeah. How was it then?
back then it was pretty liberal.
Okay.
It was just philosophy then, yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I
Yeah.
mean,
I went all the way up through, but
well, it was actually 8 years there.
okay.
They had the high school and then the full
Oh, that's
4
right.
years of college.
Then they went out.
It was
to
like St.
St.
Mary's
John.
in
They went
Baltimore.
out
The
to St.
setup
John.
was similar.
Yeah, and
Except
then
there was St. Charles and then there was
Yeah,
St. Mary's.
I forgot. Sacred Heart fellows went to St. John's Provincial, just like
right.
some of us did.
Father Rose was stationed there at St. John's for a few years.
St. John, yes, he went into St. John's after the year of 1971 when the new dioceses were assigned, when St. Peter's Church down there in Douglas was assigned to the new Kalamazoo diocese. So I went from being a candidate for Grand Rapids to being a candidate for Kalamazoo. At the same time, I decided to take a year off before all that ruckus happened, and it probably worked out for the best for me. So
I mean, Douglas is only about 25 miles to Grand Rapids, and it's probably 50 miles to Kalamazoo. I mean, it was
it's roughly a triangle.
okay.
It's 50 miles triangle.
It's about equal distance.
Yes,
Okay,
it
I
is.
guess my memory is.
I knew that because I had to drive it many a time. My dad worked from Fenville down in Kalamazoo as a carpenter, and I worked down there one summer in
Okay, you
65.
made that trip then, huh?
Yeah, many times. And now my daughter is a doctor down there, so I've made it from New Buffalo to and Grand Rapids and back. So that's a terrible triangle there. But anyway.
Over to Jim Blanchard for a second. On the question of languages, what was your experience with Latin and Spanish/French? What was the state of things at that point? And refresh everybody about the timeline that you were there.
I was there from 67, and I was in 7 years. I was through Christopher House and then 1 year down at St. Mary's in Houston. But as far as the languages go, first year we started with Latin, then second year we started with foreign language. So it was either French or Spanish. I took Spanish. Father Rose was teaching French at that time, and Bernie Corson was teaching Spanish. But we had 3 years of Latin. A fourth year of Latin was optional. Only 3 guys signed up for that class, but we had no Greek, unlike you, your class, where you had multiple years of Greek.
Yeah.
And Greek was also optional, and only a couple students signed up for it.
So, Bill, did you guys, your class, have 5 years of Greek?
Yes.
You did, okay.
You must have been the last class then
Yeah.
to have 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We were the last class for a lot of stuff.
Okay. Transition.
Last.
I gotta go, guys.
I do
Yeah.
too. I gotta go.
Okay. Take care, Pete.
All right. Just put down
Well,
Just
Everybody
make
be
sure you
safe.
change your calendars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually
Okay.
might
Oh,
be able
hey,
to come
before
to
everybody signs off, so it's September 18th at Bill's place.
what time?
So I guess we won't have a Zoom next month, or probably in September. What's
Right.
the general feeling?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay.
Only
It'll be
call
alive.
one if you think that it might be necessary. I think that to make sure everything's all set for Bill.
Oh,
That would be my recommendation.
No, we can do it by
early August.
Or
Yeah.
early
Eagerleaner
September,
can
maybe.
always.
I mean,
Or
September.
September or
September,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill,
You
what
need a
time,
count,
what time do you
Bill?
want us to come? At noon
Noon is fine.
or 11?
Okay.
Do you
11.
need a count? You need a count?
That's basically all I'll need is a count.
Okay, I'll know.
Okay, I'll
We
ask
got to arrange
people.
when to get respond by September X or whatever, so you know. Okay.
By email, will you send us his email, Bill?
Yeah, I'll have them reply to St. Joe's Memories.
Oh, okay.
Only
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I get copies of everything from that address over to me, but it
Okay,
keeps
yeah.
seminary related stuff in one spot, so I don't, if I lose
Okay.
it on my,
Okay.
so,
There you
Bill's got to know though.
Right.
right.
One bill
Right.
to the other. One
Right.
bill.
And before we sign off, Dennis LaFave,
Yes.
what were your years there? I lost track of it. When were you at St. Joe's?
I was there from 55 to 58.
Ah,
And then I got sick. Sister Christopher's room, and I ended up down. Father Tommy carried me down to the hospital.
oh my gosh.
Double pneumonia and Asiatic flu.
Oh my gosh.
And then I got out of the hospital, and Flicky wanted me back in the cemetery, and back in the seminary, and the doctor said no, he's going home for 2 more weeks because he won't make it. And then so I came back and I couldn't pass the exam, so not enough study time. So then by that time I left. Yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
But I was in with Frank Fellon, Mike Whalen.
He's from St. Thomas. He came there before I did.
Denny was in my class.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So,
No, we'll see you later then.
Yeah.
right. I'll send out a copy of tonight's meeting to everybody. I post it, as you know, on YouTube.
YouTube, yep.
And we'll plan to include in some of the announcements over the next month or so about responding to attendance at the get together in September.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the first Monday in September is probably Labor Day, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe make it the second.
So it would be
Right.
the second one, would have to
Yeah.
be the second one we're gonna get together.
That'd be wiser. That'd be wiser.
Mhm.
Okay, good enough then.
And
It's
Pete,
been
hey,
good
Pete.
talking to everybody, and
Yes.
we'll stay in touch.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey,
Good
Pete
night to all.
Garthe.
Good to see you all.
We'll try to
Pete
behave.
Garthe.
Take
Check
care.
out Father Darrell Roman.
Hmm?
Check out Father Darrell Roman in Grand
yeah.
Rapids.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Conservative, whatever, huh?
Oh, very.
Latin.
very.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adios. Be
Yep,
safe.
Take
Yeah,
care.
be good. Be careful.
Yeah, if you can't be careful, be good.
Okay.